Welcome back to Comical Opinions, where we read them first to save you time and money. I'm not 100% on board with that catchphrase, but we'll see how people like it and we'll adjust as we need to. This is a review of Eternal Warrior, Scorched Earth, the original graphic novel from Valiant, now being distributed and published by Alien Books. In this graphic novel, Gilad returns to the Scorch, which is the fire dimension, when he suspects the fire god Reyes has escaped his eternal prison and threatens to do the great burn, which would set most of the earth to ash. But before we start, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notification. Your thumbs up is greatly appreciated. And yeah, so let's get into it. This is The Eternal Warrior, Scorched Earth, the original graphic novel from Valiant, written by Trez Dean, art by Alberto Terracito, colors by Rain Barreto, letters by Tom Napolitano, and the cover art is by Gerald Parel. So in this graphic novel, which is not a compilation of anything that's been done before, at least not that we recall, Gilad is taking his duties as the Eternal Warrior, who is responsible for caretaking the Earth's only geomancer. In this case, in this era anyway, it's Tama, who is as you can imagine, just a normal, regular teenage girl who wants to get out, wants to socialize and make friends and do all the things that teenage girls do. Unfortunately, Gilad is super protective and keeps her trapped in their home to make sure that she is safe at all times. Pardon me. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of teenage angst, a lot of father-daughter kind of drama, relationship dynamic drama, and that's not sitting too well. However, what they start to see when they're watching the news is that wildfires are breaking out near oil installations and refineries. And despite his better judgment, Gilad takes Tama to one of the wildfires to put it out to prevent an ecological disaster and a large explosion that could kill a lot of people. In the flames, Gilad sees a hooded, cloaked figure who he thinks, or believes, or suspects at least, might be Reyes, escaped from the scorch. Tama puts out the fire, and they head back home, but whatever Gilad saw in the flames, he couldn't find that person, and the figure disappears. Later, Gilad decides that he has to know, so he decides that he's going to pay a visit to the Scorch, which is sort of a hell-like dimension of fire demons and people that were once in service to Reyes, even though Reyes was trapped inside a prison for trying to burn the earth down. And he calls on another Valiant character, Armstrong, to come and babysit Tama while he's in this fire dimension. So then the story splits into two threads. In the one thread, Gilad heads into the Reyes, and he meets up with one of the many entities, or kind of like demonic figures that have served Reyes over the centuries. In this case, Ignis, who takes him to the great altar where Reyes is supposed to be imprisoned. He has to eventually fight through all kinds of fire demons and acolytes that were loyal to Reyes before he gets to the altar to find out whether or not Reyes is still imprisoned there and isn't loose on Earth and trying to burn everything down. In the other thread, we have Armstrong babysitting Tama, but Armstrong being Armstrong, he kind of lets her run the show and do whatever she wants to do, namely going out in the public eye and stop all these wildfires that are popping up in strange and unusually controlled ways. And instead of being secretive and keeping her safe, Tama is allowing herself to be filmed, is allowing her to be seen by people, and she's blowing up on social media and becoming an ecologically minded influencer, if you want to call it that. Eventually, we come back together and we find out that Reyes is, without spoiling too much, Reyes is indeed free, but it came by sort of unconventional means of how he got loose, and which results in a big battle where Reyes threatens to do the great burn again and burn the earth to the ground. But he is eventually stopped, at least for now, through Gilad and Tama working together for I would say, an unusual resolution, which may sit with you, maybe not. It depends on your point of view about how you like your Eternal Warrior comics to go. So what are the positives and what do we like about Eternal Warrior Scorched Earth? Well, the family dynamic between Tama and Gilad is interesting, and Armstrong entering into the mix, acting as her surrogate uncle sort of adds some color and flavor to different ways to parent, if you want to look at it that way. And so you wind up with a lot of family dynamic and drama that's relatable and interesting, even though the circumstance of how the two got together is definitely not conventional by any stretch. The prospect of Rays coming back to Earth to reattempt the Great Burn is definitely a high stakes challenge that Gilad has to deal with, and he does eventually deal with it, but in a very unconventional way. And uh, the prospect that Rays could be coming back, and that there are more adventures for the Eternal Warrior and Tama is this definitely seeds that groundwork and is a good jumping on point for new readers to get to know the characters, understand their motivations, what they're about, and how it possibly could set the stage for future adventures. What didn't we like about the Eternal Warrior Scorched Earth? Uh, to be frank, Tama is a typical teenager, but that can be a plus, but it can also be a minus, especially when we get into the parts of where Tama finally uses her babysitting time with Ormstrom to make some friends and to get social and to kind of make a name for herself on social media. Kind of gets corny, and the pacing drags quite a bit during those scenarios. So that's not to say that her actions don't make sense for a teenager, but they don't make sense for a teenager who is also the Earth's only geomancer, who has been with Gilad long enough to know better that she's doing some really dumb things. She's exposing herself unnecessarily. She's bringing the threat of death and destruction around everyone around her in her neighborhood. I mean, she's basically being very dumb. And that's not to say teenagers aren't dumb, but Tama is also the geomancer, and she's been trained and looked after by Gilad for very obvious reasons, and she's not at all I won't say she's not listening to her father, but she's basically taking all the safety precautions which he's put in place and throwing them out the window, which just kind of lowers her character. It's like, you know, people are trying to kill you, so maybe not expose yourself to the internet. That would be bad. But she's reveling in the glory of it, reveling in being the hero that's getting all kinds of praise and attention, and the exact opposite of what she's doing. So that, and then we get in the conversations between Tama and her friends, or Tama and Armstrong, where they're just talking about how they feel about the environment and the ecological disastrous ecological impacts of oil refineries and oil companies. Those conversations tend to get really heavy-handed and drag a lot. So this isn't necessarily an ecological message, although there's definitely a strong undertone of it. But when they get into the ecological conversations, it really gets heavy-handed and kind of tedious. So a quick word about the art. Overall, the art is good. Actually, it's good to great. About Alberto Terracito does a fine job, especially there are long stretches where Eternal Warrior gets into action sequences where he has to cut down small armies of fire demons, and that looks pretty good. It's lots of solid action. Even when Tama goes out and does her uses her geomancer powers to fight wildfires, it looks good and it's generally well done. Where the art falls a little short is in the coloring. Generally speaking, Rain Barreto is a great colorist, and the palette selections and the applications are great. It's the highlighting that's off. Everything looks too bright, and the highlights don't make sense in certain places. For example, you'll have the Eternal Warrior leaping at somebody that he's trying to attack, and he has highlights like on the back of his thighs and his butt when everything should be in shadow, and then highlights are on their chest or on their back or in their face in places that don't make sense for the lighting in the surrounding areas. So the colors generally look good. It kind of looks pretty, which is fine, but the way the highlights and the shadows are applied don't at all make sense for the surroundings of in each particular panel, and so it just kind of throws you off. So there's some good, but a little bit of bad at the same time. So final comments, final thoughts. Eternal Warrior Scorched Earth, the original graphic novel from Valiant and Alien Books, is a solid adventure story starring the Eternal Warrior, which is great for Eternal Warrior fans. But if you're not a fan and don't know anything about the character, this adventure also serves as a great jumping on point. You've got great pacing, generally speaking, for the Eternal Warrior pieces. The challenge gives you high stakes. The character development and the relationship dynamics are generally well done. And so overall, it's a great adventure, although there are some rough spots in the writing. Uh, the art is also good, but it's not perfect. Could be better. But generally speaking, Solid job all the way around. So therefore, we're going to give Eternal Warrior, Scorched Earth, the original graphic novel from Valiant, a 7.5 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this review. Before you leave, please like, share, comment, subscribe to Comical Opinions for more comic reviews and analysis every week. I'm Gabe Hernandez, your publisher in EIC. You have a great day.